the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Always our pleasure being with you in lead episodes. Be the one, lead the way. In this episode, we are going to ask our guys here to talk about transformational leader. Do you believe that someone really can transform you or help you to be transformed? Can you be transformed? We are going to ask this question to them and see what's their impact. So please introduce yourself.
Amir Tadros.
Okay, so Amir, do you believe in this, like someone really can transform you or you can be transformed? What do you think?
Yeah, I think, of course, that there are always leaders in our life, and they're very in part in helping us be transformed. I know I've had many servants, many priests, always there helping me out. I mean, even in school sometimes. I think that we should always have authoritative figures who can always be there for us, because they're always going to be able to help us in one way or another.
So can I ask you a question about like whom you think did something that really made some sort of transformation in your personality? Give me something like that makes you really transformed from whatever to be something good in your life.
For example, I know Father Joshua. He played a really big role in like encouraging me to come to Tazbaha and also to come to just praying in general and praying for others. I think he was a very big part in that.
So he made this kind of transformation. So even if you were not at a certain point not involved with that much, but like he did this kind of transformation. Great, great. What do you think? Would you please introduce yourself?
My name is Thomas Assad, and I believe that a leader is always going to be someone who's being looked up to. So it's always important that, well, first of all, the leader has to like make sure that he's always doing like 100% the right thing, because everyone that's following him is looking up to him and copying him almost. So he has to be watchful of what he does. And also it's a great way to like show that it's a great way to like almost teach something to someone, because they're always looking up to you and they're always watching you. It doesn't even have to be spiritual. It could just be the way you do something that they want to learn from you. So they're always going to be watching you.
So you believe like leading by example.
Exactly, yeah.
So others can transform you by just being an example of that,
Exactly.
right? So do you have something happen to you personally that made you like move from one point to another, from a leader? Do you remember something?
Yeah, actually my first shift at Subway,
Yeah?
Amir was the one training me.
Oh yeah, that's
And,
good.
I could never cut the bread, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, I
But
just watch him. And
I feel now you eat a lot of bread, so
Oh.
you know. Okay. Okay, would you please introduce yourself?
I'm Chris Metry. I think like in an organization, everybody in the organization needs to be moving in one direction. So it's the leader's job to transform somebody who's like going off in a different path so they can all move in one direction.
Great. So you believe like the direction, like to have a main goal or main
Exactly.
thing so that they can move. Do you have something in your personal life that made this kind of switch to you?
Well, I work at Menchie's, a frozen yogurt place.
Yeah.
And then so we have like a system for how we clean the store at night when we're closing. And so I know like whenever the manager comes in the morning, so if she sees that something wasn't done right, she has to get on the person who didn't do it right so she can make sure the store.
Great. And that puts you and definitely all the rest of the people over there to always be on track on this, right?
Yes, well.
Oh yeah, that's cool. So what do you think for you concerning the transformational leader? What like this leader should do? Like if you mentioned like Thomas mentioned that like to be like leading by example. What else do you believe that the leader should do to help transform others?
I think being an example is a very important part of it. I also think that a leader is just someone who's always supposed to be very respectable and professional. So, I mean, not even just being an example, just someone that in any way he acts or anything he does, he's a respectable person. He shouldn't ever be seen goofing off or just doing something that you wouldn't expect out of a leader. So I think just the way someone presents themselves is it can definitely vary someone's opinion about them.
Okay. What do you think, Thomas?
I think the relationship that the leader has with his followers is very important. If, like, of course, there has to be that respectful relationship between them. Like, you're my leader, I have to respect you. But there should also be that love between the leader and the follower. If the leader truly shows like love and care for their followers, they're gonna want to respect him, not have to respect him, which is really important.
That's a good one. They wanna respect him, not just to have to or like obligated to be. Okay. What do you think, Chris?
I think the leader should always be like the person that we look to as who we're gonna copy and who we're gonna trust with like our actions. So like I was saying, to move in one direction.
That's great. I love all your answers, guys, concerning the transformation leader. Hope one day you will transform others so that will keep them on track. Thank you so much for being with us in this episode. Looking forward to seeing you soon so that we are going to introduce how to be a transformational leader. Thank you so much. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Be the one, lead the way. Always our pleasure being with you in Lead. Today we are going to talk about something very important. How to be transformational leader. How to be transformational leader. Leadership had a lot of aspects, a lot of definitions. Transformational leaders, basically those who are able to transform others. So they are helping others to reach to their maximum potential in their lives, and definitely that will impact their organization. So how to be a transformational leader? Use the 4 I's. 4 I's. Idealized influence. What's idealized influence? Idealized influence is basically to focus on them, to know them. You have to know your people very well so that you will be able to influence them. Sometimes you don't know what's their talents, what's their personalities, how they think, what they look like. You have to know that, because believe me, when you are going to focus on that, you are going to have this kind of influence over them. Idealized influence. The second one, intellectual stimulation. Stimulate others around you to think, to be stimulated intellectually. Let them think. You are not the only one as a leader that's a good thinker. You have to know that you are working in a team. So in order to be transformational leader, you have to tell them to think with you. That's why they are called intellectual stimulation. That will help them to be very creative and to give you the stuff which you are not thinking about. So idealized influence, intellectual stimulation, and then individualized consideration. What's the individualized consideration? Individualized like individual. Consideration like to consider each one differently. You have to know that, which is basically the one-to-one service, like in the churches. It's great for you as a leader or as a servant to be responsible for a class. But what about the individualized consideration? What about the individual visits, individual talk, one-to-one? You have to know that as a team, it's great to sit as a team. But you have to know as well that it's as important exactly as the individual talk. So by that way, you will be having the idealized influence, because you will know people through the individualized consideration, to consider them on an individual basis and to give them satisfaction, to give them their needs by this kind of talk. And definitely the intellectual stimulation, which we mentioned before. So idealized influence, intellectual stimulation, and individualized consideration, and intellectual motivation. You have to motivate them. We talked about motivation, if you remember, about the techniques of motivation. We are not going to mention them, but we are going to tell them intellectual motivation. They have to be motivated intellectually. They are need for this kind of motivation. If you motivate others, believe me, you are going to transform their way. Why? Because by that way, they are going to change their way, whatever it is. Even if it is bad, it will be developed through the motivation. And if it is good, it will be developed in more and more better ways. Let's read this. Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Do not be conformed by this world, to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. This is something very important for us to live in this world, to help others to be transformed by changing their way. That way we are going to develop our organization. As homework for you, please put on a piece of paper the 4 eyes in front of you and ask yourself what you need to do with each one, with your group, with your followers, so that the organization will be developed. Thank you so much for being with us in Lead. Be the one, lead the way. To lead you must serve, inspire by your example. To teach you must learn, before your visions are reality. Walk what you preach, so you can lead the way. To lead you must listen, be open to new ideas, admit your mistakes, to earn the trust of all who follow. Walk what you preach, so you can